Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
We're doing it. We're weighing in on the Matrix.
We're jacking back in.
Yeah, we are.
We're gonna dress like goth fucking vampires. Hell yeah.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched The Matrix.
Thematrix. Thematrix sounds like a cold medicine.
We can't see it, but we're all trapped inside these strange repeating loops.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious.
But this is the moment for you to show us what is real.
Matrix.
The Matrix, Dave.
The Matrix. Yeah.
The Matrix.
I know we're a little late to the party, folks.
Yeah. A little bit late. A couple weeks late.
I'm okay because now everybody has seen it, right? So
yeah.
everybody coming into this, you're all Matrixed up.
Mm-hmm. We're all wearing our tiny sunglasses and our coats.
Yeah.
Our long coats, our motorcycle boots. We're all looking pretty chill.
Yeah.
Pretty chill. We're all looking like industrial music ghouls.
Oh God, are we?
Mm-hmm.
This is or where we have that like the Zion look. It's one or the other, right?
Right, which is a lot of sweaters.
A lot of sweaters, yeah. Boy, this is the fourth Matrix.
Yeah.
And it kind of came and went, but when it was here, it was divisive.
Was it?
Twitter.
I unplugged from the Matrix for the 2 weeks that we took off. I stayed off the internet.
Yeah.
So
I guess I saw a lot of passionate hate for it, and I saw a lot of less passionate support for it. And I have been wondering what you were going to think of this movie, because you said, like, you've never been really a Matrix fan. You didn't really like the sequels, right?
Nope. In point of fact, I disliked the sequels.
Right. And so this movie felt to me like the sequels, which is why I'm going to ask, how did you like this movie?
I thought it was fine.
Yay!
Yeah.
We both think it was fine.
I thought it was fine. Yeah. I mean, like, the Matrix is not sacred to me. So I came into this movie, and I think it's, very intentionally, it pretty closely mirrors the first Matrix film.
Yeah.
Because it is a soft reboot that it grabs you by the ears and says that into your face for about the first half hour.
My impression is that Lana Wachowski did not want to make this movie.
No, very obviously, no.
Yeah.
The film makes it very clear that she was told in no uncertain terms, look, we're going to make a fourth Matrix. You can either be a part of it or not. She's like, all right,
exactly.
Fine. Well, if I'm going to do it, then I'm going to make it a corny love story. And they're like, all right.
Right. Yeah,
and that's what she did. And it's fine.
Yeah. That's the thing is, the Warner Bros. Just make a Matrix, and it's like, all right, I'm going to directly make fun of you and your writer's room.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, that's fine. We don't give a shit. It's the Matrix.
We literally don't care. We just want a movie that we can slap the Matrix 4 onto.
Yeah. We desperately need a win here.
Yeah.
Just make a Matrix.
So I will say that a lot like the original Matrix, for me anyway, the front half of this movie is way more interesting than the back half. And I feel that way about the original Matrix. Which is one reason why I don't even though I enjoyed the first Matrix, I don't rewatch it a lot, because for me it really falls off in the second half, and this movie kind of does the same for me. I don't know. Like it stops being interesting because the first half of the movie is you're trying to figure out what's going on. And that's like the most engaging part of it.
I think this is the affliction that is The Matrix for a lot of people, is that the first movie was really the only movie that did one specific thing, which was be a surreal mystery.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to figure out exactly what the fuck is going on. And from the perspective of not knowing they're in a computer, and at the time, there were several movies that had already tackled this idea, but at the time it wasn't a popular idea.
It wasn't a big mainstream idea, no. Yeah. The Matrix made it mainstream.
Right. The idea of hacking a VR simulation seems like magic. And it was really cool to learn, like, oh, that's what's happening. That's really clever.
Yeah.
And fun. And after that, you really couldn't make that film again. And this is why I like the sequels. Because I don't, they knew going into the sequels. And I think the Wachowskis never wanted to make more than one Matrix for the reason you're describing.
It's very clear. The first Matrix ends, and I think we've talked about this on podcasts before, but yeah, the first Matrix is pretty self-contained. It ends with him flying off into the sky, so it's like, where do we go from here? Like, it seems clear that they did not make it. I mean, it seems like they weren't even sure they were going to get the movie made in the first place, let alone that it would have sequels. So that first film is really a single story.
Yeah, you could argue that him flying off means that Neo won.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is like, that's it. That's the victory. He's freeing minds.
Yeah. He's unstoppable now. They cannot stop him.
Yeah. So then, of course, it got so huge they had to make more.
Yeah.
So what they made after that, in my opinion, are fantasy films. Fantasy epics.
Yeah, they're these weird sci-fi fantasy epics, yeah.
Yeah, and I like those for what they are. Are they as good as the first one? No, of course not. And I don't blame anybody for not liking those films, because boy, are they long and boring at times.
They're really long-winded. Especially that second one is so bloated with just every idea that they had. Which I love the Wachowskis because they're so original and they take such huge swings. And because of that, a lot of their swings don't connect, and there's a lot of those. There's a lot of whiffs for me in the second Matrix, especially.
For sure,
but they're throwing every idea they got into those sequels. They're original. I'll give them that. Those sequels are original movies.
I like the second Matrix because it's the other aspect of the Matrix, which is that it's cool. I think it's cool. I don't care. Like the first movie really seemed to cover all the psychological, the cool sci-fi aspect. So when they made the sequel, I appreciate that they were like, so let's just write a list of things that would be cool to see in the Matrix, and then let's do those things because we have the huge budget.
And Dave, ghosts were on that list.
Ghosts were on that list, but also Neo fighting just a cluster of people, a car chase.
Yeah,
the ghosts, that lobby fight, which looks really good. Another aspect I think of the Matrix that makes the first one something you can't recreate is the CGI aspect, which is that Matrix 4 is now made in a world where you can do anything you want at any point in any movie. Mm-hmm. So how do you impress people? Like, I remember even the second Matrix, seeing the shot of the agent jumping on a car and smashing it and being like, I've never seen that before. I've never seen that in a film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of, as the movies went on, we lost that as well.
Yeah.
So the question is, when you make a fourth Matrix, both of those elements are gone. So what do you do? And so, like, it really feels like there's no wrong answers because this movie shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked the idea of the computer, like, just it desperately trying to keep Neo trapped in this treadmill loop. And the way to do that is to just address who he is head on by making, like, so they have him as a computer programmer that has programmed this huge, like, very popular Matrix video game that's literally just the first 3 films. So that's their way of controlling him is having everything he experienced be in this world that he's in, only it's a video game he created. So there's this constant war in his mind over what's real. And that's a really interesting way to keep a person trapped.
So that was the biggest surprise to me, is that the meta in this film is logical within the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so the idea is that both Trinity and Neo died at the end of the third one. Their bodies were resurrected, and that sequence where they're showing them like get rebuilt
is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah.
And so they basically like the bots weren't done with them. They were like, these are anomalies. We're not going to just let them die. So that motivation made sense. I also like that this movie, it starts by asking a bunch of questions, like why would they keep you alive and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I fully expected them to mystery box it, but no, they answer
don't.
it.
And that's one thing I liked about The Matrix, even though, the original Matrix anyway, even though the first half of the movie is built on a sort of mystery box, like the movie doesn't leave any unanswered question. Like it answers every question.
Yeah. I would argue so did this one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's still some stuff that doesn't quite, like, I'm still not entirely sure what the state of the world is. I like the reveal that the machines started fighting each other over their resources.
Yes.
I was like, perfect, they've become us. But like, I'm unclear because they tell Neo when they pull him out, and they have Jada Pinkett Smith in honestly really good old person makeup.
Yeah, she looks great.
Like, it was so good that I had to look up to see if it was her.
Right. They do this thing where I thought this was a neat idea. Is they make it take place something like 60 years later.
About 60 years later, yeah.
Neo and Trinity don't look 60 years. Like, they do this thing where it's like, they've been keeping you in more of a stasis. You've been aging slower.
Yeah.
It was a good way of handling, like, how do we age everybody in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, go on.
So Jada Pinkett Smith, they boost Neo out of the Matrix again, and he's in the new Zion, which is called Io, which is advanced, and it's where like a bunch of what do they call them, synthients, robots and humans live together, including one of the AIs. I'm pretty sure is the Italian enforcer that Tony Soprano picks up in season 2. Like, I'm pretty sure that was him. I have to go look it up.
Oh, you're right. I know what you're talking about. The guy working on the strawberry.
Yes, I forget his name in The Sopranos, but he's a real fucking badass in The Sopranos.
And then there are sidekick machines who are let's face it, Star Wars characters.
Yeah, they're all Star Wars characters, but
it's fine.
So my question is I don't understand that Neo pointedly asks the question that everybody, and this is another meta thing in this movie. This movie is extremely meta, both towards the Matrix and towards the franchise culture and legacy sequels in general, because it asks the big question that a lot of people asked of The Force Awakens, where Neo just flat out says, I feel like nothing we did mattered.
Right.
And so, but then Jada Pinkett Smith, whose character's Niobe, I think is her name, tells him, well, no, it did matter. See, we built this city together, us and the machines. But that's as far as they explain. So I'm still unclear as to whether like humans exist alongside the machines in sort of like an uneasy 2 separate states, but like the robots are still using cloned human slaves to power themselves, but like Jada Pinkett Smith keeps talking about staying hidden from the Sentinels, so it seems like they are still like human beings are still slaves. So I was yes. That's the only part of the movie that I didn't. That's the only question I feel like the movie didn't satisfactorily answer.
I agree.
What is the state of the world right now?
I have guesses, but I generally agree. My guess is that at the end of the first Matrix, or last Matrix rather, they say like basically the Oracle asks the architect like, what are you going to do? What of the people who want to leave? And he said they'll be freed, obviously. But I think it's framed that way of what about the people who want to leave? So I think the idea is that the Matrix continues, but they will be allowed to free minds. at their, because it's like, who wants to live in the real world?
Yeah, the real
honestly?
world fucking sucks. I would rather be in the I am Cypher all the way. I would rather be in the goddamn Matrix.
Yeah, and I think the idea is in the first Matrix is the machines are like, no exceptions.
Yeah.
And now they're like, okay, we'll work with you on this. And so I think because it is framed as like people still don't know they're in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's because there's like, I think it's the idea that after Neo and Trinity, like in Morpheus, there's clearly different factions of humans and robots who have different views of what the freedom means, right?
Yes.
So like,
it's very it can be very cruel for some people. So they have to. The whole point of the movie is that Trinity has to decide to be freed herself.
Yeah. And I think that's the idea is like Neo and Trinity are more extremists too. They're like, no, we're going to, as she said, paint rainbows in the sky, because they're like, we don't give a fuck if people leave the Matrix. As where there's more of like moderates, I think, who are like, no, we're living out here in Zion or Io, but like we're not trying to like take down the machines anymore. We're just trying to survive and stay away from them, and they stay away from us, I think is the idea. Because, yeah, I really appreciate, by the way, the thing you talked about, which is it really feels like Lana Wachowski, she, like, thought of all these, had all the same gripes we do with reboots. And, like, I like that it mattered, like the last films mattered, that things are different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very glad they addressed that. I don't know if it was different enough, but I think, yeah, that's the idea, is that after the war, the machines sort of, not every machine liked the truce. There was internal conflicts with the machines. They went to war with each other. Humans sort of had their own internal conflicts as well, and so everything's fucked. That's what it seems like, is like, she says, like, a new faction took over in the machines, and I think they're less, willing to work with humans. So I think that's why the Sentinels and stuff like that, where they're like, we can't be seen, because the new machine government essentially took back the truce. That's what it feels like. But there's clearly like now a faction of machines that work with the humans. They don't explain it well.
Yeah, I think we can just leave it at that. I real quick, I looked it up. The character from The Sopranos is named Furio. It is not the same guy, but it really looked a lot like him.
Yeah, it really did.
Anyway, we can move on from that.
Yeah. But yeah, I did like the explanations for the most part. I just sort of assumed what I was saying, that it's like, well, they didn't all leave the Matrix. It was confusing at first because the movie doesn't start in the Matrix. It starts in a modal, which then like I thought where Neo was, because they kept talking about it. I thought that's where Neo was at first.
He kind of is.
No, he's in the main Matrix though. He's just
sort of. He's
disguised.
in a separate loop within the Matrix. Like I think he is in a modal within the Matrix because.
Oh really?
Yeah, because remember we were shown that Bugs kind of woke up when she saw Keanu kill himself, and they keep changing what he looks like, what his avatar looks like. Like
I thought it's the same look.
No, it's a different one. Like when he steps off the roof, he's a bald guy.
Right.
So I think he keeps trying to break out. Like we eventually learned that at one point he stepped off the roof of his company because he was going to fly like he did at the end of the first Matrix. And Bugs saw this happen, and she says, "But you never fell." So it's like the Matrix kind of clipped that bit out and reset it, and she saw that happen.
And that's what freed her mind.
Right. And they put him back in the same loop. They just changed what his outward skin was. So I think he is trapped in a modal. And then he made his own modal to free Morpheus from the Matrix.
Right. The Morpheus stuff makes as much sense as it needs to. Is that Neo like subconsciously made this modal on his computer within the Matrix, where he left like it open.
Yeah.
And it's the loop of he like mixed Agent Smith and Morpheus together.
Yeah. It's the loop of the first trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they find it, people from IO, and they free the Morpheus in there. and the Morpheus in there is programmed to find Neo. And so that Morpheus does what he's been programmed to do. He has to find Neo. And that's why Morpheus is played by someone else, because it's the game version of Morpheus.
It's a different iteration. And that's the same reason Smith is played by somebody else.
Yeah. Because, that's the other thing the Machines does. They trapped Smith in with Neo. They basically took all these elements of the first films and they put them in this contained area to sort of study and keep them, like they wanted to keep it alive, but they don't want them to be a danger. So they created the situation where the Matrix is a video game that Neo created, so that all his memories, he's basically being gaslit into thinking like, no, you had a psychotic break, and you are that those memories of it being real. No, you made this game, and then you forgot that it was a game. And so that's what they're doing to him, which, I really liked. I thought that was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Doogie Howser's there.
Yeah. He's called the Analyst. He's the new architect, basically.
Yeah. He's the villain.
Yeah. He created this new version of the Matrix, which is based entirely on Neo and Trinity.
Right. And it's based off the idea that they found that they get more power out of humans by torturing them, essentially, giving them almost the things they want and taking it away. So the relationship of Neo and Trinity, I keep almost calling her Trilogy, is that he always sees her at a coffee shop, but she's married and has kids.
Yeah, did you
longing.
Did you notice who she's married to?
No.
Chad Stahelski.
Who's that?
He's the stunt coordinator from the original Matrix. He's the director of John Wick. And his name is literally Chad.
Yeah. I think I read that actually and forgot about it. That's great.
So yeah,
she's married to the director of John Wick.
Married to and Keanu's stunt guy and coordinator from the original Matrix.
Yeah, that's cool. It's the weirdest thing is the stuff that I really liked about this movie is the plot.
Yeah.
I really like the romance, because it's always been about Trinity and Neo. Even if you don't want it, even if people don't want it to be. That's what it's about.
Her name is Trinity.
Yeah.
Like it's the, it's all the Bible references in the original film. Like they're on the Nebuchadnezzar, like it was all like, yes, she was, it was always the three of them, honestly. But yes. It was always right there. So yeah, if anybody making like, oh, they made the Matrix woke, I've seen a few of that, which is just delightfully hilarious. It's like you realize what the Matrix is, right?
Right.
And who made it.
Yeah. They briefly touch on the trans allegory, which from what I've heard was not actually the intent of the first Matrix.
No.
It just kind of naturally came out. Because the directors
I've read
are
the same
trans.
thing. Yeah.
And so it's like later it was like, oh yeah, we did kind of make a trans allegory, didn't we? Of course we did. We weren't even thinking about it. And so they bring it up here briefly. None of the meta stuff really bothered me, which is funny because it's very in your face. Because they have that writer's room run by Christina Ricci, who is underused.
Who is in one scene of this movie.
Yeah, I remember hearing she was cast, and I was like, ooh, and then that.
That's it.
It's like,
she's in a single scene.
Yeah.
That's my only gripe with this movie. We addressed the unanswered, the big unanswered question, which isn't a huge deal, but it is just a little confusing. Because I like to understand, when you get into like a weird, dense sci-fi universe, I kind of like to understand everything about what's going on, and that part's still unclear to me. But my only real gripe about this movie is that it really does feel like a bunch of positioning to start a new franchise.
Of course,
yeah. So it ends up feeling it feels a little incomplete.
Yes, that's what I was. I want to still talk about the stuff I liked, but I want to get into why it's just okay.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is I felt generally underwhelmed.
Yes.
Because they do all this stuff at the front, and I do think they could have dialed back the meta a little bit. It didn't have to be dialed back too much, but those characters in that boardroom were like, all right. settle the fuck down. You know, like the caricatures of like entertainment millennials got a little cartoonish. Which is still acceptable because they're programs in a matrix. So
then they show them repeating themselves too, and that is intentional. And that's the point.
Yeah, because he's on a treadmill.
Yes.
Everything's the same, etc. And so I get it, but it's on there real thick.
But I did enjoy it because it's showing a room full of people all saying what the Matrix is, and they're all kind of right. But they're also all a room full of people telling the person who created the Matrix what the Matrix is.
Yeah. Which is, I think,
still correct.
Yeah, I think that's based off a real event, right?
I'm sure.
Like that. That feels like Lana Wachowski writing in an actual meeting she had, or several meetings.
Well, we've had these conversations too. Like one of the character goes like, "All right, honestly, the thing that people think of when you say the Matrix is bullet time," and I'm like, "I have had this conversation." And it's. I mean, it's not wrong because that's part of art is listening to what other people like. This is what the Matrix is to me. And it's got to kind of touch all those bases, but then at the same time, you're thinking it's like, wow, I'm the person that made this, and these people are all telling me what the Matrix is. It's like, well, no, this is what it is for me. But so they're all like I said, none of them are wrong, but it's like I really enjoyed that, like all these people trying to wrap their minds around what exactly the Matrix is.
Right.
And sort of like telling us right up front, this is a fucking impossible task that we're about to embark upon. How do we make a new Matrix? Yeah.
How do we? One final thing I really liked was the new version of the agents, which is the bots.
Bots, yeah.
The swarm, the idea of a swarm. I love when they all start dropping out of the buildings.
That was one of the, like when you said earlier, from the sequels, the original sequels, the agent slamming down in a car, and like that's something I've never seen in a film before. That was probably the big moment from this one for me, where they have all of the drones diving headlong out of skyscrapers as missiles to try to knock Neo and Trinity off their motorcycle as they're having a chase through the city. That was really cool.
I really liked that.
Because that was a cool idea.
And the bots are still, I think, I can't tell if they're people or not. Yeah, they are people, but they get, it's the same way an agent takes you over. They get taken over with a programming. Mm-hmm. And so they don't act like, they're like zombies.
They don't, and they don't become the agents like they do in the original. Yeah,
just their eyes change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a great idea. And I thought that was like, oh, what a good update. I also liked how they treated Agent Smith, because honestly, I'm sure there was an instinct to be like, and Smith is back and he's the big bad guy and we got to get Hugo Weaving. And it's sort of like, no, Smith's time has come and passed. Like, he's sort of a side character in this. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was interesting too.
He's just like and that's sort of what he became in the sequels too, where he's just this chaotic presence,
right?
That just wants out of this program because he hates it there.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, all the agents always in every movie look like they just smelled a fart.
Oh yeah.
And I remembered Smith talks about how he hates the smell. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if that's intentional. Of like, always look like you're at the dump. You know, that you're in a sewer.
I think so, because they're doing a distasteful task.
Yeah,
right. Like they don't like
they hate it.
Dealing with the cattle. Basically, it's a menial task. It's a degrading. It's a low level job for these programs to have to perform.
That's true.
So yeah, I'm sure that's intentional.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like Smith's motivation. That's his entire character is, I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore.
And I think what it is for me that made this movie not quite enough, was that one, it is ultimately just the story of Neo freeing Trinity.
Yeah. And
Trinity getting Neo powers, which I loved that she gets to fly, because that is the next stage of the Matrix, is other people
becoming Neo
level. Yep. And of course, it would start with her.
Yeah.
But it does feel like there's an element of the plot that's just a little missing. And in terms of the story, I'm not sure what that is. In terms, so the thing we haven't talked about, and this is the part that underwhelmed me, is the action. The action, I would argue, is underwhelming in this for the most part.
I thought it was fine.
That's the thing. It was just fine.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think they played it safe because the thing about The Matrix and its action sequences were that they were doing these impossible things, right? Like the point of The Matrix, unlike a lot of action movies or like unlike John Wick, it's like the polar opposite of John Wick, where the cool thing about John Wick is the tight choreography and the flow and how cool and grounded, quote unquote grounded it is, but still really innovative and interesting. Like the point of the action in the Matrix movies is that they're all impossible. It's like watching The Raid versus watching Crouching Tiger. I think they realize that it's hard to surprise or dazzle or impress people with impossible action sequences right now, so they kept them where they're still doing the cool Matrix flips and stuff, but it's a little more subdued and it's more quick. And it doesn't really like luxuriate in them because it knows that you've seen them before, and since The Matrix has come out, you've been watching these kinds of action sequences for 20 years now. So it's like they know they're not blowing your mind with this shit anymore. I know I'm asking for an impossible task, but I did want them to try to add a new thing, to try to think, okay, we're doing The Matrix 4. How do we get that shock and awe back? Because the first Matrix is it was shit we had never seen before, and by the third Matrix I would say you still have that with the second Matrix, like the car chase sequence. If you look at the behind the scenes of that and shit, it's like, wow, they went above and beyond here. And then you get to the third one, and that's sort of the moment where they're like, you've kind of seen everything, we're doing anime, like the Agent Smith Neo fight at the end is pretty spectacular. The Dragon Ball Z fight,
yeah, and that was something we hadn't really seen yet either, which was like, we're going to do these super powered fights.
They also
in this live action setting.
The third one takes place mostly outside of the Matrix too.
Yes, it does. But when it is in the Matrix, it's that shit.
Yeah.
And then like we were saying, decades of superhero films happened. Where we've seen superheroes fight. We've seen everything there is to see.
Yeah.
One of the things all the Matrix do have is practical effects, and this one was no different. You could tell, like the car stuff, and there are definitely practical things. But that question of what do you do?
I think it was a bunch. For me, this movie satisfied me in that aspect because I think they compromised by making a bunch of smaller offers. Like there's a bunch of smaller moments that are really cool. Like, I mean, there's the most obvious one is the kind of time freezing where Neil Patrick Harris like literally says, "This is our new bullet time."
Yes.
So that's the biggest one, which is kind of cool. It was okay. It was a cool ability to give the villain to be like, oh shit, like this, like
he's using his own thing against
there is
him.
Still a threat here that they can't overcome just by being the baddest asses. But then there were also a bunch of smaller moments, like some of the cool stuff when they're hopping through mobile portals, and you see a lot of it in the trailer, but like when they go into the hallway and it rotates, and like they go onto the train and they're throwing people through the window out of the train and stuff like that.
The portals were definitely cool.
And like we talked about, the people diving out of the skyscraper to become just this sea of projectile bodies rocketing down at Neo and Trinity in the middle of a car chase. So I think it's the compromise was doing a bunch of smaller things that were impressive, but they don't like I said, they don't luxuriate in those moments as much as they would have in the original trilogy, because they know they're not blowing your mind anymore. They just, okay, it's like, we know what we can, we've perfected the technology after decades. Let's just try to do kind of cool things with it that aren't necessarily mind-blowing, but would still have the effect of being like, oh, that was cool. That's an interesting thing that I haven't really seen before.
I don't even need it to be like a visual element. It's almost like I needed a new device that was something I just like I think of a movie like Doctor Strange and how they handled that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like, whoa,
yeah,
that was, like,
yeah.
In all, like, that's not new technology. It's just a new visual playground.
It's a new idea.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, and I think this lacked that.
Yes, it did.
And I think they really should have thought about, okay, we're dealing with the Matrix. We're dealing with now. We've like, what is some way we can blow people away visually? A new way to do that. A new weird, like, surreal idea of how Neo fights these people. I think that would have. Like, I feel like I was missing that. The fights were good, but it also felt like they didn't do, like, the amount of training that they did in the other movies. Like, there was a lot more cuts, it felt like, to the action. A lot more stunt doubles.
Yeah, I think... I'm just guessing, but of course, most of this movie was produced during a pandemic. That might have something to do with it.
It also probably didn't have the budget of
I'm sure, yeah.
the sequels, at least. Probably of the first one. So, like, it felt like they were, you know, like, it was, like, not quite enough of what, like, it felt like they might have wanted to do more, too. Like, it felt oddly small scale. That's
my biggest gripe with the film, is that it feels smaller than I expected, even though the first half of the movie, I think I really enjoyed.
Right.
And it kind of narrows its focus and narrows its scale some towards the end, which is strange. You would think it would do the opposite. And then, it feels weirdly small and weirdly incomplete.
Yeah, like the ending sequence taking place at the fucking coffee shop, and it's like, huh, all right. I mean, but they had a narrative reason to take place there.
And it was the same, you know, it starts in the coffee shop, which is like the lobby of the building where they rescue Morpheus, and then it becomes a car chase, and then it ends on a building with helicopters. It's like they're mirroring the first movie.
They are. But yeah, it did ultimately feel underwhelming in the sense, in the action, in the resolution too, in the ending where they jump off.
Actually, I liked that moment, though. Like, they both...
I love the moment.
The moment is really good. It's really good.
Yeah. But there's clearly something missing from this.
Yes.
And I can't quite put my finger on what it is.
I think it's that feeling of being incomplete, where it's still a lot of positioning. It's not as epic as we might have expected, because the first Matrix was pretty small. And then, of course, the sequels were huge, like, you know, just crazy huge. And I think this is reverting back to, for either because of thematic reasons or budgetary reasons or a mixture of both, it's kind of more in line with the first film, where it's telling a smaller scale story that does have these huge moments, but ultimately is pretty small scale. And again, like, it's a lot of positioning for potential sequels. Like, Christina Ricci, in her 6 lines of dialogue in this film, literally says, "This is everything that we want to see in a Matrix 4, and who knows how many more."
Right.
So they tell you up front, like, listen, we're setting this up for maybe more. I don't know. We'll see.
Right, and I think Lana is saying that very cynically in the moment too, of like, and I guess we're gonna make more. And that also is the whole problem with this movie, is that this is not anybody's fault but the studio, is that it has the Hobbit issues, which is that you make this 3-part epic that concludes something, and then they're like, man, let's go back to a smaller story, and everybody's kind of like, or, you know, the Fantastic Beasts. It's got that. It's got that stench on it, where it's like, the story ended, and it was the biggest story. They did the biggest story, and it ended, and then they're like, and here's some more, and it's like,
it's like the 6 Feet Under reboot.
Yeah, God damn. I don't. That's happening, isn't it? Why would they do that?
I don't know. But to be clear, this movie, Matrix Resurrections, is much, much better than The Hobbits or any of the Fantastic Beasts.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It feels like it has more of a right to exist, for sure, but it still can't, like, that's still a thing it's struggling with, because, again, there's no version of this movie you could make that wouldn't have that problem.
Right. It's because we told the big story.
Yeah.
You know, it's like going like you said, it's going back and doing Rogue One after we've done the original Star Wars trilogy. It's like we did the big story.
Right. Doesn't matter how good it is. It doesn't where it exists in the larger scale. The only way to avoid that was something you had actually proposed, I think, at a Hypecast, which is the reveal that everything is still within the Matrix.
Yeah.
And then that
would have bummed too many people out, I think.
I think so too. And I think, well, it's not just that, that's a harder sell.
Yeah.
This, like, the idea of what happened to Neo and Trinity, didn't they die? They don't overcomplicate it. They're just like, the machines rebuilt their bodies. They're the machines.
Sure.
They had their bodies, they fucking rebuilt them, plugged them back in the Matrix, and it's like, yeah, why not? That actually makes a lot of sense. That works just fine.
Well, yeah, and it does. If you think about like the lore of the Matrix, where Neo keeps happening throughout history, and there's a bit that Neil Patrick Harris says in this movie where, like, the architect from the original trilogy and most of the other machines wanted to just flush him and move on. Like, yeah, that was weird that this keeps happening, and like he was the one that was like, well, no, maybe we should hang on to these two because this keeps happening. Maybe there's something to harnessing this anomaly and making it work for us. So they like the meta stuff we were saying earlier, where it justifies itself within the logic of the story. So does the improbability of bringing these two characters back to life. Where you're like, okay, all right, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, the Matrix is literally bleeding them dry. Yeah. They're just like, fuck it. Let's get everything we can. I would have liked to see some advancements from the machines based on whatever they're doing with Neo and Trinity. Jesus Christ.
Fucking hell, Dave.
I would have liked to see like more of like, and this is what we got out of this. But it's whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like an anti-Neo. Fuck it.
I mean, maybe. I mean, my hat is off to them, Lana and the two other screenwriters that she worked with, for being able to pull this off in a way that was like both logical and also satisfying as a story.
Yeah. That's the wildest thing about this is that it really does like all make enough sense.
Yeah, it makes it in a movie that, like you pointed out, any Matrix 4 would have to justify its existence. That's when you're a sequel to a trilogy that was huge and told a complete story. It's like there's no getting around that hurdle.
Yes and no, because they do if Neo and Trinity are back. They have to justify their existence.
Mm-hmm. I think they do either way. But yeah.
Well, because the Animatrix... See, honestly, this is the problem, and I think it's, again, what Lana Wachowski had to face, which is they were probably like, we want to make a fourth Matrix, and you better believe we need the actors
We need
back.
At least Keanu, yeah.
Because you could make 20 Matrixes. This is the Star Wars.
It's the Star Wars problem. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
they're
stop
afraid
making,
to. Yeah.
Right, where it's like there's got to be other people besides the Skywalkers who you could talk about. It's the same with this, where it's like there are so many stories to tell in the Matrix. If only they were allowed to not have Neo and Trinity. If only they could do a prequel, like a story of the one, or just a side story. Like there's so many things they could do. It would be really fun to do.
I would give any amount of money to see them do the story of Jesus as one of the ones.
Ooh, yeah.
Like Jesus seeing the fucking
Flipping
Matrix
around.
code and then flying and shit. Because they hint that Jesus was a Neo in the original trilogy.
Yeah, they sure do. What I want is I want the split version of the Matrix where you don't realize it's a Matrix movie. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah.
To do a haunted house movie or sci-fi.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah. The haunted house Animatrix short. I was like, do that, and then have the reveal at the end of the haunted house movie be that it's the fucking Matrix.
Yeah. I think that would be really cool. Mm-hmm. There's just so much they can do with it, and this does feel like it's all getting funneled through these boring ass studios who are like, no,
it has to check their studio boxes. Yeah, and again, it's very. This movie is about franchise culture, and it's to a degree it is cynical, but there's also stuff about it that's not cynical, and the fact that they managed to create what they did within those constraints is honestly pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think what we're circling, though, is that while it does try to break free from some of the tropes, for example, they don't completely reset everything. They say, Neo, what you did in the first movies did matter. Here's why. I don't think they did that enough. And I think the second half, had that gone completely off the rails, had they broken out from the reboot format, I think that would have earned the first half, the meta stuff.
A little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's what needed to happen, right? Is they're going on and on about how, like, we got to do the same stuff again. And then they just do the same stuff again.
Yes.
And it's like, well, shit. You did the same stuff, so what are you complaining about? Do something different at the end. They even do the ending shot that's the same fucking shot. And isn't the end credit song a cover of the Rage Against the Machine song? Yeah, probably.
I think it was.
Yeah. And so I think that's what was missing, is where it had to take like this drastic turn at some point and go wild in a way that you don't expect. It really is that the ending, while there was a lot of good moments that we talked about, it just felt like it was missing something.
It felt incomplete. Yeah, it felt like it was getting us all primed to get back into the Matrix, and then it stopped right when it did that.
Yeah,
and I get that's the intent. They want to set up more Matrix movies, and they want to test the waters to see if we want more Matrix movies, which who knows? I mean, this movie didn't do as well as they would have hoped for. I mean, but there's a number of reasons why. Huge other pandemic, huge new surge in a new version of the virus in the pandemic, and then it was also simultaneously available on HBO Max. Maybe that stuff will be taken into account. Maybe we will yet see more Matrix movies. I don't know.
I don't think Warner Brothers gets a hint about, like, they're making a third Fantastic Beasts.
They're like really force feeding us that movie, man.
Yeah. So I think if they want to do another Matrix, I don't think it matters how well this did. But it's the Spider-Man thing where it's like, by the time Marvel got Spider-Man, they're like, and we're not going to show you his origin because you've seen it. That's sort of like this whole Neo Trinity stuff. Maybe it needed to maybe the ending of this movie needed to be the halfway point, or something like that. Like we spend an entire movie getting to the ending of the first movie.
Yes.
And it's like, well, we need to advance a little faster because we already knew this. The flying isn't a surprise, The
fact that Trinity can do it was a surprise.
Yeah. But like, you know what I mean, where it's like it's not enough. It's like playing a video game again too, where it's like I want more. This is the video game sequel, so you got to give me more stuff, more powers. That is an element of it, even if it's superficial. It did feel like a little too much wheel spinning. I hope there's a sequel for that reason, because I really want to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, a little small scale, felt a little stretched out. I think I get why people wouldn't like this movie, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I've watched it twice.
Oh, neat. Yeah, I'll probably watch it again.
I even like the stupid stuff because, again, I think it starts from what we talked about, which neither of us, the Matrix, is sacred.
No.
So it's like, oh, little robots? Yeah, let's get more of those.
I don't give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
He fist bumps a robot. I don't care.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
We're having fun. We're in the Matrix.
Yeah, we're in the Matrix, baby. I did think it was very funny when they showed us the statue of Morpheus that it looks nothing like Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't even try.
They could have had, because he said he wasn't approached for this movie.
Yeah.
I guess.
Neither was Hugo.
Yeah, which is, I guess it does, in the plot, it makes sense not to bring back Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
It
makes sense. It makes sense not to bring back Morpheus too, because it's like 60 years in the future. He's fucking dead.
Right. There's definitely that where they could have made him old too, but maybe they were like, we don't need, like, maybe Niobe there was probably a version where that was Morpheus, Maybe,
yeah.
And they were like, you know what? Let's just Morpheus, like, the implication is Morpheus is part of a system. He is the one to free Neo. And I don't.
It's part of the
I guess
system.
that's
Part of the system that Neo created for himself.
I was about to say that the humans. That's a human system where it's he's like you are Morpheus.
Morpheus was not a program in the original trilogy.
Yeah, but it's neat that he becomes one, and that his programming is that. This is your.
Well, it's a nice
existence.
mirror. Yeah, it's a nice mirror of. Since a lot of the Matrix is about free will and versus destiny, a lot of way to look at that is like, so like, what's the human version of programming? Belief, sort of,
right?
Like there's a parallel there that I thought was pretty interesting.
That is cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of. There's a
lot of stuff in
There's
here.
a decent amount of subtext here, which of course there is. It's a Matrix movie, but
yeah.
What about when the Merovingians showed up? Holy fucking shit.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Pro or anti?
I love it. So pro. So pro.
He's so like living like a rat man.
He's just a maniac. He's a maniac.
Talking about kids on their phones. I liked it. It was over the top.
Yes, and I loved it.
It's the sort of thing that if I thought the Matrix was something sacred, I might be offended by his presence.
Well, no, because the Matrix
was like,
one of the benefits of the Matrix is that it's always been kind of stupid.
Yeah.
It's never more apparent than any time when they do the cool slow-mo reveal of them jacking back into the Matrix and everybody looks like a fucking dipshit.
Yes.
With like tiny sunglasses and leather jackets. Yes. Like you all look like assholes.
They all look like the worst people at a goth club.
Yeah.
And like that is the reveal of the Matrix. That's always the reveal is they're all fucking nerds.
Yeah, and they're all just a bunch of toolboxes.
Yeah. So like I loved that scene where they all showed up in this one and they all look like assholes. And it's like you chose
such assholes.
You could have picked any outfit and this is what you chose. And it's I think that's a reflection of like gamer culture.
Yeah.
And tryhards. Like they're all tryhards.
Yeah, that's all tryhards. Yes. That was the idea of the original movie is that they were programmers and that's why they noticed the code, et cetera, et cetera. So they're all dressed like what fucking just what tryhards would aspire to be after watching Hackers a bunch in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. It's again it works within the plot of the movie that they would be like that. It's amazing. And I love that the juxtaposition to Zion where they're all dressed, they're all dressed like they're all in a war zone.
Yeah, and they're all wearing sweaters they bought from the mall.
Yeah, because it is about the Matrix has always been about that idea of your online persona versus your real life. And don't you want, like, people, the desire to live digitally, to be whatever you want, to look however you want. Second life.
The desire to look like your true self. It's all of that stuff.
And that's where the trans allegory comes from.
For sure.
To call yourself whatever you want. Mm-hmm. That what the internet gave people in terms of their identity is what it is a big part of what the Matrix is about.
Yeah.
And they don't even explore it that much.
No, it's just there. It's not they don't make a big deal out of it or shove it in your face, but the subtext is there. I
would love to see a version where they're like dressing like dipshits. One has a horse mask and like keeps
there would be
teabagging. Keeps teabagging people. And
right. There would be one person who they would all walk in and everybody's a goth vampire, and then just fucking RoboCop is there. Like one dude would look like RoboCop.
Yeah, I would be RoboCop.
I would be RoboCop.
Yeah,
I'd be a Ninja Turtle. I like
Yeah. It's weird that they're not. But whatever.
I don't know. It's funny that everybody has the same idea of what looks cool in the Matrix.
Yeah.
It's never not been hilarious to me.
It is very funny. And the Merovingian in this was ridiculous, unnecessary, and I did enjoy
it's a great
fucking ranting and being a fucking weirdo.
I loved every second of it. And then he scampers off into the bushes, hopefully to return for the sequels.
God, I hope so.
Yeah, he better. What a hero.
What a hero. Oh, that's all I got to say about the Matrix.
Yeah, man, I'm done.
Resurrections. Yeah, I'm done too. I think a lot of fun.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
I'm
folks.
for it. I'm for it.
Yeah, I still want them to stray away from Neo and Trinity, but
I think they did. I think they did a good job of that. They did the thing that they, in the original Matrix, they kill off the entire crew except for Morpheus, Neo, and Trinity, essentially.
Yeah, in this version, they keep them all alive.
Yeah, they introduce a bunch of new characters and keep them all alive.
And I like the characters, but you know what I mean, where it's like, I'd rather have an entire Matrix series without the word Neo said at all.
For sure. I did appreciate that they do kind of, Neo, interestingly, is they find a way for him to be the audience surrogate again, like our way into this world yet again, but also he kind of takes a back seat and is not really the main character after a certain point.
Right.
It felt like to me, the second half of this movie felt more like an ensemble. And while even though I said like the second half of this movie kind of dropped off in terms of interest for me, I did appreciate that it stuck with the other characters it introduced and didn't just kind of throw them away.
Yeah, for sure. And they note it. They're like, everybody died who has hung out with Neo before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was good. Yeah, it was good. It was fun.
All right.
Matrix.
Yeah. That's a sewed. We've done it. We did the Matrix.
We did the Matrix. We told you what the Matrix is.
Mm-hmm. We broke the rule of the Matrix, and that
we broke the Matrix.
That we couldn't tell anybody about it and had to show it to you. Well, listen.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves will be knocking on our doors.
Yep.
To beat us up, and he can.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, can he!
Listen, he still knows kung fu.
He does. That line, boy. Didn't need that line.
I don't know. It was fine.
It's fine.
Again, it's fine. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like at that point in the movie, I was into it. Like I'm vibing at that point.
That's fair.
Like that's happening simultaneously to the Merovingian. So if you're not vibing with the film at that point,
that's true. If you're not at that point in the film, you can just shut it off if you're not into it, because it's not going to get any better.
No,
or different rather.
Nope.
Hey folks, thanks for listening. We have a Patreon I want to tell you about. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. If you go on there, you can find exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. Those are all there. $5 a month. You get access to all of them. If you want to kick in a little more money, we watch movies every Friday night with our patrons. There's other tiers as well to check out, so just go there. Go there and look-see.
Yeah, check it out. Slap your peepers on that. We also have a store. Head over to GameFeelingUnemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store where you have a bunch of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, masks, mugs, stickers, posters, all kinds of stuff. Check that out.
Check it out. We should start selling like cool glasses because they're going to come back after this film.
Real tiny glasses. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like fucking Dracula glasses.
Man, I just want to look like Dracula in a synth band.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah!
Oh my god!
Dracula as a touring member of New Order.
Yeah. God damn it! What a bunch of fucking nerds in the Matrix.
Yep, it's great. I love it. It's so dumb.
I wish every time they walked into a room, everybody just laughed in laughing. The Matrix. Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
Right. Because, like in a group of those people coming into the room, you assume they're LARPing.
Right, or they got lost on their way to a costume party.
Right, yeah. But you wouldn't assume that there would be no bigger than surprise than when those people start actually beating people up.
Yeah.
Like, that's the last thing I would expect people to look like that would do.
Yeah.
Like, I could see them, like, sitting on the floor and rolling dice. Like, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see a bunch of nerd shit.
Yeah, you see them shouting lightning bolt at each other. Lightning bolt!
Exactly. Oh, that's a video from the internet.
It sure is, Dave.